Hi guys, my name is Travis and here are a few of my friends.
I'm Christian.
I'm Lydia.
And I'm Reid.
And we are all lifters. We are all part of this year-long discipleship/leadership program that focuses on the holistic development of the young man or woman to put them in closer proximity to grow in Christ. So lately we've been focusing on some spiritual disciplines that we've all been practicing to grow and learn more about. Yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, we're all kind of over the last few weeks, about a month, we chose a spiritual discipline to kind of hone in on and study. And each of us are going to get an opportunity to kind of talk about our individual ones. But I think today we're going to be mostly talking about the heart behind service and the intentions that we have behind it and how the other spiritual disciplines might actually play into our intentions behind it. I think it's really cool. Yeah. Lydia? Never mind. Just could have cut that.
So I practiced detachment for a month with my friend Charlotte, and detachment is really just focused on letting go of worldly distractions that take our time, effort, and energy away from the Lord. So that could be material possessions, or it could be mindsets, things that we believe about ourselves like pride, or it could even be idolatrous relationships, people that we care more about their opinions of us than we care about God's opinion of us. And I think in terms of service, detachment's really important because it creates the space for us to be thinking about other people more than we're thinking about ourselves, whether it's in a giving kind of way or just giving of our time to be present with people. Like there's so many things that we can give to people, but it requires humility of us and it requires us to let go of something.
Yeah, and speaking of letting go, my spiritual discipline was care of the tongue, where I had to let go, like just taking the crazy route of my speech and changing into more like dialed in speech, where I'm not being foolish with it, because it's easy to be a fool with your words, and the discipline kind of focuses on changing the negative and destructive way that we use our words into authentic and loving speech. Um, and we learn about the power of the tongue throughout the discipline. So like Solomon puts it this way in Proverbs 18:21, he says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruits." And that in itself like really struck me, and it was kind of like a cognitive dissonance for me, because I was like, darn, I just really just talk. I never really think about my words before I speak. And when you start to understand like that your words have an immense power, and that your tongue is so potent, like you see the same kind of imagery in James. I don't have the verse right on me, but I think he talks about your tongue being able to cause a wildfire. If it were an actual like flame, it will cause a wildfire. And it's really important to just be able to kind of see that in your relationship, and you see that and utilize your tongue better in your relationships with others and also with yourself. Because if you're telling yourself mentally that you're like you can't do something, that you're a failure, that God won't love you anymore because of this thing or that thing, then you're ultimately not going to be able to serve and love others better out of a Christ-like love, or rather a sense of I don't know. I want to say failure, but there's another word that I'm thinking of, but I can't think of it right now. So
Yeah, it's almost like if we don't define ourselves as sons and daughters of Christ, so we can't be servants of Christ. It affects how we interact with other people.
right.
Yeah. Not only that, or just like how we talk to each other. Are we building each other up or tearing each other down? But yeah, I guess I'd pose the question like, what are our motives behind serving? Because ultimately we want to serve out of love for people and to glorify God. And so, but we live in a culture where service is really out of selfish ambition deep down. And it's definitely hard to fall into that. But did you guys struggle with that at all? Like while practicing your disciplines, or notice that any tendencies?
Well, so my spiritual discipline actually was service. which I think really clarified. But I did run into that, especially really early on, and that's honestly what kind of drew me into it even more was because it was like an assignment from ST or whatever class it was. It immediately turned into this thing that like it was a grade. I don't know, like don't be lazy about this. Take these next few weeks and really practice this discipline. And so it just turned into like an assignment for me, and so it was just like my partner and I we're gonna text each other every day about like how we served. I think we did that like 3 times, um, but that's really what I'm glad that kind of was brought up to me as just that idea of like why am I like serving these people right now, like I don't know, because then it forced me to like really analyze like what like service with an empty heart. I'm sure is Jesus flipping tables kind of stuff because like really I mean like if Jesus came here and saw me like serving with just like this I don't even know even if it isn't for selfish gain but to complete a homework assignment where like that's like the only reason why I'm like going out of my way to serve and that at the end of this 3 weeks is like I'm gonna it kind of bothers me because we practice these disciplines for these 3-4 weeks whatever and then we present on them and it's almost like we present on them and then we're done with them. That's kind of how it came across. And I know it's not, that wasn't listed attention at all, but I think it was easy for a lot of us to get that idea. That's kind of how it was going to look. But anyway, so yeah, I digress. Back to just if Jesus saw that was the only reason why I was serving people, I'm sure he would not be very happy at that. So that just kind of posed a question in my mind: is how do I actually serve people? What is my motivation? Why, like, how did Jesus love these people so much that he treated them like dear loved ones every single time he ran into a stranger? So I was just, so, and that's a huge question. That is a huge question.
Yeah, I definitely struggled with that too. Not necessarily in thinking about my discipline in legalistic ways as if it was a homework assignment, but definitely like transactionally, I expected to get something out of it from other people. So a lot of detachment for me was giving of my time or my space or what I had to other people, whether that was my money, paying for other people's things, or bringing them to perks with my car, because a lot of people here don't have cars, or things like that. I definitely didn't expect people to do things like that for me in return, but I expected gratitude. And so I caught myself a lot of times doing things for other people and giving up what I had so that they would think more highly of me. And that definitely is not the point of the spiritual disciplines, but that was really, really tough just to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't necessarily always doing it for the right reasons or for God's glory. So I think that's a really common struggle we can all have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I practice self-control, and I would say like I don't know how to associate that necessarily like directly to serving people, but like I mean it kind of plays into what you were talking about, Travis, about controlling your speech and what you're saying. Like I don't have to be the funny guy all the time. And I mean one of the things I did was stop driving my truck around camp. But I mean, was that like sometimes I would question like, am I doing this because I want to glorify God, I want to obey the rules that I agreed to, or am I just doing it because I don't want to get yelled at or would whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like what does a heart of like I don't know how to get to that point. I mean we are sinners, but I don't know how to get to where we serve like Christ with that kind of same heart. But
I think one of the hardest parts of that is that your pride and also your like self-worth being low can sort of butt heads with each other. You want to be like Christ and you want to have others think highly of you, but you also want to be humble, and you don't want the credit for it. And Jesus was humble too, but those don't really happen at the same time. And so it can feel like you're failing pretty much all the time. if you're not achieving what Christ achieved. But I think it's important to remember that we aren't Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
And so one of the most hopeful things for me when I'm practicing spiritual disciplines and feeling like I'm failing is just to remember that God sees my heart, and I'm only doing all of these things because of God's power in me anyway. So as long as I'm giving him the credit and I'm giving control over myself to him, then he will be glorified no matter what. Even through my failures, I don't have to strive. I can just be with God, and that's enough for him, you know? So it doesn't really matter if you fail. It does matter, but it's not the end of the world because God is still in control and he's still good, even if we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the pastors at the ministry center down the street, and he was basically set me down with a few other guys, and he was like, "How many of you guys think of God as being the God of like just pointing fingers, checking the list off every time you do something wrong?" And he's like, "No, God is sitting there. He's like, my son, how are you? What did you learn today? How can you grow tomorrow from where you just were at?" And he's like, it's almost like this proud father picture that we see with our heavenly Father. That's because we're hidden in Christ. So when he sees us, he sees his son. So we have that peace with him now, and it's not that oh, you did that, get cast away. It's not that anymore, and it's just beautiful how that kind of relates to what you were saying with like your failure. Once you have what you feed yourself, like as far as God's identity of you or his view of you, and once you feed yourself with that, then you can see like, oh man, I have an opportunity to get to do better. And it may not be just getting it right. It may just be slow incremental process or slow incremental steps to get to where you need to be. So, yeah.
I think maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a big part of it too, is that maybe once we can kind of understand that, like, you know, that the idea that God has of us, maybe that's what, you know, is a crucial part of just like the understanding of how he sees everybody else. Because if we can even start to grasp God's benevolence towards us and how much he loves us, because I mean, it's like you said, you know, like when he looks at us, he sees his son, which is like a crazy, you know, you talk to parents who like have kids. I know, like, my brother is just like, his life, I swear, is just complete satire. Like, he just is always joking around. He can't ever just take anything serious. But he just had a son like a little less than a year ago. And like, like the love that I have just seen him display towards him is like way out of character for my brother. But I'm just like if my brother can learn to love this little baby so much, like, I just remember like actually sitting there and like realizing, because my brother was just like, he just said to me like, I would die for this kid in an instant. And I just like, God did that, you know, like, I was like, yeah, you know, like, but like, I don't know, when he looks at us, it's that same love. And even like, I have nieces and nephews, and you know, this one in particular, his name was Jordan, bro. I'm not picking favorites, but he is my favorite. But he's like, I love him so much. And to think like, he's not even my kid. And that same love that I can feel for him, God feels for me to an infinite extent, you know? So like, if we can even grasp that, but like not selfishly, you know, if we can grasp that for everybody else, every person around us, that like, you know, when we are mistreated on the road, when we get cut off on the road, you know, we don't like throw up our hands so they can see us in the rear view mirror. You know, we just take it like a champ, and we're like, that person is like fearfully and wonderfully made by God. What can I do? That, like, you know, people make mistakes on the road. That's fine, you know, but like, it's just, I don't know. I think that learning to love people like Jesus did, which I'm not sure is quite attainable, but you know, at least making that effort is going to be crucial into how we serve them.
Yeah, that's so important, because how do you love somebody if you don't see them for who they are? You know,
Right, exactly.
you're not going to love someone if you don't know that they're a son or daughter of the Most High. And once you do, you said it yourself, you know, it's so much more joyful to serve a person who is a beloved son or daughter of the Most High, and not just another person whose identity doesn't matter to you. So I think that is where it should start. It should start with us understanding our identity and just comprehending the absolute love that Christ has for every single person, and that should move us to just joyously give of everything we have for each other.
I concur.
Thanks.
I also concur with that. All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. We just want to leave you with the encouragement to really diligently search out what it means to truly love and serve like Jesus did, outside of just words, but trying to actually meditate on that and take action. And if you have any ideas, just leave us some comments or something. Subscribe to watch some more of these.
Subscribe.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate you. Bye.